Hey, what's going on to all the Splinterlands players out there? I'm glad that a lot of new players are enjoying my guides on the different teams. As you see, I've done fire, water, and earth, and today we're going to talk about the life team. Now, for me, I might not be the best guide for the life team due to when I first got into the game, I traded all my life cards for death cards so I could level up one team so I could have one powerful team. And then I kind of regretted that once the death team had some early change that made them not as good as they were. They were very, very powerful in alpha. And then they were one of the few teams that got nerfed, and it was kind of a bummer for those of us that leveled up that team. But I forgive the team because it was kind of imbalanced, and now they're kind of a different kind of team. We'll talk about them. They're the last one. I'm just kind of going in order, as you can see across the see, I did fire, water, earth, life. Death is next, and then we'll do dragons, and then we'll talk about the neutral cards. And as you know, I always like to try to talk about the summoners. Last week I had some battle examples for you. I don't have them for you this week, but I will have them probably for the death team, and maybe I'll do some review videos where I just do battle examples using teams. Let me know if you like that, and if you're going to be making comments and doing things on the account, guys, go ahead and subscribe, help out the channel, help grow the people who are fans of the game. But let's get into the summoners. Okay, so obviously we have the Peak Rider. He is kind of an interesting card in that he's not as expensive as some of the other beta 5 legendary summoners. Again, investing in this card would only be if you're someone who wants to play not in the new format that's coming out with Chaos Legion, but in the overall version where you can use all summoners. The 5 cost legendary summoners are kings of say 25 to about 30 mana, where the 7 cost can't get as many people on the board. In some rule sets, the 7s can beat the 5s, but the 5s are very, very competitive in that kind of mana range. And if you don't have them, you're going to lose a lot in those mana ranges to people that do in either tournaments or in the formats that have all cards available. Now, in Chaos Legion going forward, the only summoners that are going to be playable from this set are Chancius, Mother Kala, and Lorena Shine, and they are all very, very good summoners. But one of the things that's kind of interesting for them, none of them give an armor boost. So in the Chaos Legion, I'm expecting you to get some kind of summoner that's going to give an armor boost for the Chaos Legion modern format, because the life team does have a lot of repair cards and kind of interesting cards that are built around having armor. But if you don't have a summoner with an armor buff, some of the cards don't really come with armor, which is an interesting thing. Now, there's 3 basic teams that I'm going to talk about that you can make with the life set, and you can go any of these routes and they can be really competitive. But we'll talk about these summoners first. So obviously at this point, Tyrus is pretty expensive. It makes sense to pick him up at least at level like 1, maybe level 3, so you have him if you want to play this team. But then again, a cheaper route you could go and you would be able to have this card for the future would be Lorena Shine. She's very interesting because armor and divine shield kind of +1 armor and divine shield kind of do the same thing, but I could almost make an argument that the divine shield is better, because even a big attack from a piercing monster, you'd block that first attack. Also, she can be very, very competitive in any kind of earthquake mode or poison mode. If you don't have flyers, or you don't have the ability to cleanse and things like that, and you still want to put them on the board, because she can prevent people from taking a damage. She's also really, really tricky in the no abilities game, because like, let's say you're playing no abilities earthquake, and that happens sometimes, so none of the monsters can fly. Earthquake is going to devastate the team, and kind of your strategy is to play high HP monsters. But if you throw this summoner on the board, she'll block earthquake for your entire team for the first time, and so it works out pretty well, and also will block a big attack for that first monster if that is what comes. Now, armor can do that too, but somebody could play the summoner that takes away armor, or it's just similar, right? These two are very similar, almost interchangeable when you really think about it, except for when it comes to the repair abilities on the team. Then you do, if you want to play those, then you need the armor boosting cards. There are cards that give everyone armor in the life set, so we'll talk about those ones as well. Now, obviously, the most economical at this point is the Mother. She's an interesting summoner. She has a +1 health. This is the same thing as on the green team with Lorena, and I would just say for this team, I don't see this normally being spectacular until you get to the higher levels, but it's not bad either. It's at least a card that buffs your entire team, which is an advantage because then you can know that all of your characters are going to have one extra life. I wouldn't really, if you're a newer player, invest in Kara. She's going to be taken out of modern format. She's a 2-cost summoner that gives nothing to your team and is only really useful in like those 12 mana matches. Those only come up every once in a while, so I don't really think that you need this unless you're a collector, you want to know everything, or you're a player who's trying to get to the top tier. Then you do need every summoner for every possible format if you always want to win games, because one loss at the top that gives you a -20 or -30 really wrecks you. And I'll talk about that today when I get to reviewing maybe a few battles if I can do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the monsters on the team and the ones that are kind of important. So we'll take the summoners off the board, and then we'll talk about the different formats and the key formats for this team. There is a format that you can play with this team that is basically keep the first tank alive. You cannot kill him, and it only works once you get into the upper levels because the other cards don't work so well behind it. But the idea behind that is you would use Chancius and his revive, along with the High Priestess and his revive, along with a healer. It can be Angel of Light, and her revive is the best way to go. And then you put them all. You put this tank here, the shield bearer, in the front line. When he's at high level, he has like return fire and things like that. And then you're doing pretty good magic damage with the High Priestess in the front position. You have a heal. You have three resurrects, so if they kill him, he's going to keep coming back with his high amount of armor. And then you're also going to put in just some other monsters that attack the front row position. And it's basically like, look, no matter what did, I went ahead and played a taunting tank with a lot of life, a lot of armor, with healers and resurrects behind him. So you're going to have to kill this tank 3 or 4 times. If you have to go through his armor because your team doesn't have a magic attack, you're in big trouble. Or if it's magic armor mode, this works really well. Or if it's no mages, it works really well. Or if the blue team is just not allowed to be played that turn, this can be a really good format because it can mess up everybody else's sets, and that's pretty much the team set. But that's an expensive set to go format to go. You have to have Chancius, you have to have Angel of Light, you have to have well, this guy's not that expensive comparatively. I forget everything is expensive now, but he is going to have that resurrect, do a lot of damage, and then you'll kind of look. Why I see this doesn't get working until like the higher levels is because, see, you need him at level 6 so that he has blast, weaken, and resurrect, so then he's doing a lot of damage to a lot of different people. You need the shield bearer at high levels because you need him to have his shield, and to be completely honest, he gets a lot better if it's return fire. So there are some interesting combos there. Now, we'll talk about the cards that can give your monsters armor and give all of them armor. They have 3 on the team, I believe, at this point. So the OG of this is, let me see, did I pass her? Right here. So the Defender of Truth is really expensive. It's a really solid card. At 4 mana, it can fit into a lot of teams, and then you're going to see here at the high, once you get it to level 3, it gets the protect ability, giving all of your monsters 2 armor. This was the first original card that gave everybody new armor. Now, in the new set, if you're more looking to get Untamed cards, one of the cards that's really worth getting, and it's an amazing card, but it's only an amazing card at max level, which is really frustrating on the Untamed set, because it doesn't get its tank hill till here. This is why this is a team that's not so suited for competing really heavy in bronze, because some of their cards have very important abilities that they don't get until the final level, and so you got to level them all the way up. But here you have a cleanse, a protect, and a tank heal. Now you can just throw it on the board for the protect at low levels, because honestly 2 extra armor to your entire team for early in the game can be really good, and it can help the team a lot. But you have to know that that card doesn't get amazing until it's a healer as well. You can get a divine healer. I would suggest picking one up, because even if you left it at the lower levels, it can give you a healer on your team, and for some formats that's relatively important. The Silver Shield Paladin, again, doesn't get good until he gets to attack. So again, he needs to be up here at level 4. Other than that, there are some much better tanks at low level that hit harder. He has a shield, but like compare him at level 1 to like the fire elemental who's got 3 attack, a shield, 3 armor, and more life. Now given he costs more mana to put on the board, so maybe if this was a 7 mana card, it'd be similar stats, but you can build your team usually around giving a much better, much stronger tank in the first position. Now, now that we've talked kind of about, and so if you're going that format where you're going to do this guy in the front with 2 resurrects behind him, you're really just looking for powerful attackers that can attack the front row. Some of the cards you're going to look at are Peacebringer. You've got this one here if you want to go a little bit more economical, but you'd have to have higher mana matches. You've also got the new rewards card isn't a bad one because it's magic attack and it hits the first front row. Some of the other ones are the air elemental. He attacks pretty good. The new epic card can work for attacking the front row. So you're really just looking for really good attackers. You're attacking the front row. You're forcing them to attack the front row, and you're gonna be able to put people behind them. Now, that is the keep alive the front row position. Now, one of the other formats this team has is the sneak format. So we are going to sneak you, and we are going to sneak you. We're going to sneak you hard, and we're going to kill you from the back position. Now, this can still use the shield bearer in the first position. The reason why that format still might want shield bearer in the first position is to prevent them from killing your sneak monsters. Make them go kill your shield bearer first, and that way your sneak people can do whatever they want and roam through the back of the monsters on their team. The way they do this is with the Silver Shield Assassin. This only really works in higher mana matches unless you go ahead and go with kind of a off-brand low mana tank. They do have an okay one in the Crystal Werewolf. He is not terrible as a tank to just for 3 mana sit in the front row and take a few hits. You can do him, say, with a chicken behind him and then put your assassin, and then you back your assassin up with some of the other sneak monsters that this team has, and it has a few others that you can go ahead and deploy, and the other ones you pull from the neutral set. So the big one here is the Feral Spirit. He becomes very fast at high level, but if not, he's just a solid sneak monster. Then you can go ahead and play... We'll go ahead and bring up the neutrals for a second because for the sneak team, I'm going to have to pull them into the board. There's the Elven Cutthroat, and then there's the new big one that costs 9 in the Sandworm. So all of these cards can be played together to play up to 4 sneak monsters on their team, and then they can force people to attack the front row. Now, obviously, you can't always put a combination including a 7 cost and a 9 cost monster, so most of the time you're going to play your double attacking assassin. It's just in a high mana match, you're going to add in a Sandworm. And then you're going to play the 2 little sneakers so that you have 3 sneakers there. One format that you could go in this mode if you wanted to for your tank, instead of doing, say, a Silver Shield Paladin or even the taunt guy, you can play a Silver Shield Knight, because a Silver Shield Knight will add 1 attack to all your sneak monsters. In this mode, also, I would suggest sometimes trying to control speed. Throwing a Creeping Ooze on the board isn't a bad way to do it. If you have a higher leveled up Spirit Miner, they can help you control speed, or they have the 1 cost card that helps control speed. Let me find it. This is the Bard. The Bard's not a bad 1 cost to throw on the board, but only when you're competing kind of at the level 5 range, because it has this. They do have Cleanse, so the Life team is one of the teams that I would say that you could play in Poison mode, because they have a couple different cards that cleanse, and so you can throw a card on the board, cleanse it, and then it can compete. So that's the sneak mode. Now, in the sneak mode, if you want to spend the money, you could put a Sacred Unicorn in the first position. Sacred Unicorn with its self-heal 7 and 7 life is pretty good, but it's kind of on par with the Flesh Golem. It's not a dominating card. It gets better at higher levels when it gets some other stats put on it, but it's an interesting card, but it is relatively expensive at this point, so I don't know if it's worth it. It's also a older bordered card, as you can see, so this won't be in the Chaos Legion format, so I don't know if I would go for that one. The new legendary from the dice set is one that you could look into putting onto your team for the future for high mana matches, but these 12 cost summoners are our monsters are kind of unique to be used in really, really high mana. It's an absolutely great tank once you get it to these higher levels. it inspires your whole team. It has immunity, so it can't be debuffed. It has a self heal with immunity, which means it will always be able to be able to heal itself, and a healer behind it would always be able to heal. So this is one that I'm actually thinking about investing in because I don't have all the 12 cost monsters, and I think they're cheaper than people are expecting, because in Chaos Legion we're going to see that these monsters are going to be some of the strongest monsters in the set, so that's going to be an interesting thing. Let's go ahead and take the neutrals off, and we'll talk about the other format that I think the Life team can do that no other team can do as well, and that is the Snipe team. So the Snipe team is kind of an interesting one. It's similar to the Sneak team, but they got this big card recently in the reward set here, this 9-cost Sniper, who actually is one of the other cards that can get Protect and give your whole team armor at upper levels, and he gets Piercing, so he's made to even pierce through back row tanks that have armor. He ends up hitting really, really hard, and then you can back him up with the Lone Boatman. The Lone Boatman is a sniper who gets the repair format, so you put these two next to each other, and then there's a couple other snipers on the team that you can go ahead and add in to really go ahead and get pretty strong. Now in the old set, there's this one here. He's pretty cheap. He's not a bad one to get because he's easier to put on the board, because you're already talking about 14 mana for these two, so that makes 16 in a 20 say odd mana match. That leaves you a little bit of mana to put a okay tank up in the front row, or maybe he fits in like a 24. Now when you get into the higher 30 mana matches and you really, really want to go crazy snipers, that's when you have to bring in neutrals again. So we'll bring them back up, and the main one you're going to be looking to add is the Manitoid with this one here. But if you want to be competitive in the format that has all cards available later on, the one that you want is the Centaur, because it only costs 4. And so at a decent level, this one's easier to get into the team. And if you're going to be playing the Snipe mode, then you want to do it. So in those kind of games, you're basically going to be putting an okay tank up in the front, and then you're going to be putting some kind of secondary tank card behind them. And then usually I put the 9-cost card tank next, because if the other team has any snipers, they're going to have a hard time killing this guy unless they went heavy snipers. And it's an interesting format to see. It's a fun way to play. So this team really has these basic formats I've went over so far in the video. You can go for heavy armor with lots of resurrects and lots of heals and a taunting tank up in the first position. You can set up a team that really sneaks, and everybody sneaks, and they destroy the back road, and that one's actually pretty fun. I'm going to go see if I can find an example of that, but I don't know if I did it in my recent battles. And then they also have a sniper team that can be pretty ridiculous and kind of fun to use. So we'll go over to my battle tab. The reason why I don't really have the battles aimed out right now is because my Life team is a little bit weaker. It's one of my weaker teams, and I'm competing in Champion 2, trying to get into the top 50 of the leaderboard. I was at 51st. I went on a little bit of a losing streak recently, just started winning again, but I'm trying to push this up and get into the top 50. I always make the top 100, but I haven't made the top 50 in a while, so I'm trying to pull it off, but it can be hard because I run into a lot of those 5-cost legendary summoners, and I don't have them, so when I do, they pretty much just pound me into the ground. But let's go ahead and go to the battle log. If I don't have anyone where I use the Life team to show you, see, I don't use them very much. I was also doing an Earth quest. So what we'll do here is we'll go to top battles and see if we can find an example for you to watch. So this one here with Shoematch, he uses the Sneak team I was telling you about. Just he used Kara to make it all fit. So this is an example of the Sneak team. And these are pretty much the way people play these teams. So I'm hoping I'd be able to find you some examples. So see, this, like I told you, you can put the taunt monster up here. So basically you're making it so that their snipers are not going to be able to do their sniper job. They're going to have to go here. He actually got a great setup for this because he put a return fire monster on the board to send all that fire back at them. They don't have a shatter on their team. And then he went sneak, so he's going to go back here and take out their healer first, then their other assassin. So this is a great example of one where your Sneak team completely and utterly just went completely as a great counter to the other team. And we'll speed this up, and so you'll see the return fire is going to get rid of that armor, and so that Spirit of the Forest is going to go down on turn 1 once that one gets in place. And then this is going to land a really devastating blow too. Now, mind you, these are completely maxed out cards, but the idea of the team is going to work the same. You go, hey, you guys have to get through my big beefy tank. As you can see here, they have this healer, but you would maybe have the cheaper, what do you call it, the Dark Priestess. And then eventually here, even though he's got thorns, with his team having armor, he's not, the thorns are just not going to be able to kill these monsters before he's able to take out the other team. So that's an example of the sneak one. Let's see if anybody in the top battles played the sniper team. If not, we'll end it there because I'm trying to bring these down a little bit. That's another sneak team. See, you have somebody here playing the sneak team. Here's Lorena. She's playing. That's an interesting setup there. Maybe we'll come back and watch that. Let me see if I could find anything else. It's not really one of the ones I went about. Yeah, but that's the only other life team, so we'll go ahead and get it. This is kind of an example of using Lorena. So Shiny Champ is one of the people in the top, I think 5. So that's why this top battle's there. So the idea here is kind of you're going to have to go through my front row person, and I'm going to make my team fast. I'm going to cleanse. This is kind of an interesting thing. He was protecting himself from sneak. I'm actually surprised this worked, but it looks like it did because he had the win. So let's go ahead and see what happens. Like I said, the death team, to me, they're kind of one of the weaker teams at this point, except for in certain formats, which is kind of a bummer because I really like them. So he was able to protect his weak monsters. Oh, this is super sneak. So this is interesting. This was a super sneak match where the opponent didn't even go sneak monsters. And so he was going with the idea that this one would would dodge a lot, but he didn't even go sneak monsters. And so basically he went with a self-healing take up in the front with little guys that could go ahead and do sneak attacks into the back. And then the real advantage here is he's got 2 monsters that only cost 1, 1 monster that only cost 2, another monster that cost 3, which allowed him to put that big tank up in the front. So hopefully those examples, sorry, I kind of ducking to get my mouth closer to the mic, but hopefully those examples give you kind of an idea of how the life team would work, and hopefully everything I went over makes a lot of sense to you. They are a fun little team, that's for sure. They are better than a lot of people think they are because their cards seem to tend to be a little bit cheap. And I would say that they are a very competitive team, and they have some cool cards that are not that expensive when you talk about the market, which is kind of nice. I know on their rewards cards, if you look at some of their new ones, this card is better than people think. It's a nice, good attacker, and you get some good abilities. This sniper, this big sniper that lets you do the sniper team is really incredible. And this card here is really, really, really strong if you're going to go in that format where everybody attacks the front row position. And same thing with this one here. Now, everything has gotten more expensive right now in the game. So if you're a newer player and you're discouraged, I'd say just learn the game modes, learn the teams that are good, learn the things that are good, see the teams that beat you, and when Chaos Legion comes out, really study those cards and see which one of those cards are going to be similar to the cards that are going away. Because if you look at the betas, the promos, these are the cards that are going to be going away in that new set. So they're all going to be gone. So you're not going to have this healer. You're not going to have this tank. You're not going to have these front row archers. These back row archers anymore. You're not going to have this summoner, or this summoner. So is Chaos Legion going to introduce cards that are similar to these cards? My thought process is yes, but a little bit different. So maybe the legendary summoners will be the first 4-cost legendary summoners of the game, and they'll give +1 armor and +1 health because they cost 4, so they can be a little bit better. Something like that. I don't know for sure, but this is my speculation, is that there's going to be some cards that come out to kind of replace these cards and this functionality that is taken away. That way the new modern format of the game is similar to the old format of the game, but it's just designed for the next tier of players that join into the game to be able to buy a set that's now out and is not super expensive and level it up while having to spend a little bit of money, because if you're going to want to be a top tier player in the new format, you're going to need these Untamed cards and these dice cards. And these cards are not cheap, as you can see at this point, not the best ones. Chansey is sitting here at 128. This one's 29. This is 10. This little guy's $34. So you're really going to have to own a lot of these cards, but some of them on the life team are not that expensive. You know, the Eagle is a very good secondary tank. This card is relatively cheap, but then again, you have to max it out, so it's deceptively expensive because it's only $1 for one. But if you wanted to max it out, you'd need 115, so that's a $115 card for it to be your healer. And then you really have to have max level summoners and max level cards if you're even going to use that card as your healer. So as you can see, the life team does not have a low level healer in its current dice and Untamed set or its reward set that has the borders. So if you want to know if a rewards card is going to be playable in the new set, he is, because see, their cards have this new blackish bottom. These ones with the gray bottoms, those ones are out. Those are not going into the next set. So that was just a quick little tip, and we'll end the video there. Hope you all have a good one, and if you have any questions or want me to cover a little bit more things in the future, let me know. Thanks. Bye.